What do Ochos, Laterals, and Suzy Q's have in common? Figure eights. Hi everyone, it's Tasleem. Thanks for coming to my channel. If you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're not part of the dance world, it's okay because I am going to explain to you about figure eights and how they don't just show up in dance, but they show up in all parts of our lives. We don't even know it, and when they don't show up, we should put them in for very important reasons. For those of you who do dance, you're very familiar with ochos, especially in tango, or even sways, waves and sways in zouk, but especially the lateral or the infinity movement in zouk. And in other dances like hip hop, even fusion, there's like in ballet, jazz, there's so much to do with forming a figure eight with our bodies. And Suzy Q's are very infamous in salsa dancing, but we don't even realize that when making a Suzy Q, whether you're going forwards or backwards, or it's a more complex Suzy Q, you're actually making a figure eight with your hips in order to create that movement. And if you haven't checked out my video from way back, I talked about the importance of figure eights then in more detail, but I'm still going to cover it here. So figure eights, I have learned through energy medicine. Donna Eden, thank you so much for all your teachings, and your daughters, Titania and Dondi Dallin, for teaching me about the power of figure eights in healing ourselves, because figure eights actually replicate how our body and our system works. Our DNA, like the structure of the DNA, is a huge winding figure eight, and it goes through our center, and it's the reason for it is that it integrates, it balances out our different sides of our body and brings everything into wholeness. And even the figure eight, when you consider, like, if this is the eight on its side or up and down, each side can represent that part of the brain or body. And when we work both sides together, which they're supposed to be, like, that's, you know, that infinity, it just keeps going, and we're infinite. Our bodies are infinite. And when we're healthy and whole and working together, that infinity, that left and right sides of our body, left and right sides of our brain are working in balance. And when that is happening, we can feel it. We feel joy, we feel strong, we feel confident. We can go out and do everything and anything. But when we get sick, or when we get an illness, or when we're surrounded by toxicity or stress, when we're worried about things too much, and often when that can lead to disease or diagnosis of a very serious kind, it's because that balance, that infinity, that working together of the left and right sides of the body has gone out of whack. But what I've learned is that we can bring that wholeness, that balance back to the body by doing figure eights with our bodies, especially. That's huge. But if we're not even capable of doing that right now, even just drawing out figure eights on paper, or tracing it out with your hands or whatever part of you can move, even drawing out figure eights on another person's body that's gone weak or needs attention is really healing to the body, because it reminds our bodies how we are supposed to function. This morning, I was so excited because I know in my last video I was talking about what's kind of going wrong with me in a way, but in my body, or not being able to function. But then I was like revisiting my older videos, and I was like, wait a second, like I know the power of figure eights, and I have not been using them enough. When I was dancing, I didn't know anything about figure eights. I mean, I knew that I was doing them in dance, but I didn't know that they could help me and other people heal and become stronger. But I was doing so much of that, like practicing Ochos and Laterals, and like constantly, whether I was actually taking dance practice, a dance class, if I was practicing dance, if I was doing some sort of performance, if I was like just even social dancing, I would, the amount of figure eights, like chest movements and hip movements, even in belly dance and kizomba, so much is like constantly like just repeating the figure eights in all different ways, in all different planes. Like we can do figure eights as if this is the plane, but then we can do figure eights parallel to the floor. So now this is the plane instead of this or this. And we can even do them with our shoulders, like little micro movements with our shoulders, anything. And I was all throughout dance. And I didn't know that I was constantly reminding my body, even probably thinking it without realizing it, that we work together as a whole. And this left and right sides of our brain and our bodies work together. And my body was loving it without me even realizing why, because that's the way that that's our unique blueprint, the DNA that's going in the big, huge, winding figure eight. And if there were things going off in my body, even with a diagnosis, with having weakness, I was never giving up. I didn't know that I was constantly telling my body, like, okay, this is how we're supposed to work. This is how we're supposed to work. And I tell you, when you remind your body of what it is supposed to be like, it will follow. It will believe that you believe it, and it will follow, even if you don't even realize that that's what you're doing. And I didn't. For so many years, I was just doing it. I was like, there are so many reasons that I love dance, even just for the pure enjoyment of it. But I didn't realize that a lot of that joy and balance and strength, it was coming from also these kind of movements that I was constantly repeating. And it was allowing the two sides of my body to work together. And lately, even in my last video, when I was talking about like having dexterity issues or being off balance and not being able to walk very well, like I was thinking, but wait a second, my body is very, very highly not working with the two sides working together. So why don't I take the advice that I got a long time ago, and that I was giving a long time ago as well, and incorporate figure eights again into my life? Even if I'm not dancing, this morning I held on to the kitchen counter and I was practicing Ochos. And, there was a part of me, the little voice that was like, yeah, but you're cheating because you're holding on to the counter and you're not actually dancing. But like, who cares? I was actually. And I think The important part is doing the movement. Who cares how it's being done? I mean, do it safely and do it so that you're doing it in a like correct manner so that your muscle memory is learning it correctly. But if you need something like a chair or counter or something to hang on to while you're doing it, I was still doing the movement, and I can feel that my body was like, oh yeah, we've done this before, let's keep doing it, it feels really good, and I want to just keep doing it. You know, things come up, I'm like, oh wow, like it's really weak on this side, or my foot hurts when I put it this way now when it wasn't doing that before. But I really believe that there's this memory that our body has of things that we did before, or the way that it's supposed to be. And if we continue to reinstate that, our body will pick it up. It's so much smarter than we give it credit for. And even when we think that we're not doing it well, or we don't remember how to do it, like our body remembers better for us. So this going, you know, left and right coordinating together is called contralateral. It's like why we walk with our left leg and right arm out, and left arm and right leg stepping, like, you know, I'm exaggerating this movement. We're not walking robotically like that, but it's leverage when we use our core, and when we contralateral, when we cross, we use the cross system of left and right together, rather than, you know, if we were walking left arm and left leg, it would be very awkward. It would be kind of like you're not going to get very far. And strangely enough, that's how I'm walking right now. I mean, it's even more complicated than that, but that's the basic thing, is that my body has forgotten how to do the contralateral. And so I'm going to remind it how, by doing the figure eights movements, which really requires so much connection between left and right and coordination between left and right. And the thing is, this left and left, like the reason I fall or that happens is there's weakness, but it's also, you know, we did this a long time ago when we came into this world. We were not walking or crawling or moving even just around in our cribs or whatever contralaterally. We had to build up to that. How we showed up was homolateral. It's like this parallel kind of, or it's like the same side. So homolateral is when you're not using the leverage of the two different sides. Like we don't, maybe some of you are very aware, because if you are a dancer or do something very physical, you probably have a huge body awareness, but sometimes we don't realize, like if I go to reach for something so this will be to my left, I'm reaching with my right arm, but I'm also going to use my my right leg. So I'm reaching to the left, but I'm using my right leg and foot to anchor me to the ground. And we don't realize these things. Like, you know, in tango, it was very emphasized that when you walk forward with your left leg, you're going to also be pushing off the ground or pushing into the floor with your right leg to propel that. So there's so much like counter movement. There's so much that the right side of the body needs the left side for, and vice versa. And so doing, like, as we grow up, as we develop, we weren't consciously like told, oh, okay, now you're going from homolateral as a toddler, and now you're learning how to go contralateral. It just happened naturally because we got strengthened, we started figuring out which, like we're looking at our hands and fingers, and if we fell, we would get ourselves back up, but then realize like, oh, when I walk forward or if I'm crawling forward, it's easier to do it with the opposite sides working together. Again, not consciously thinking about this when you're like 1 year old, but it's just happening. And as we grow older or as we develop, when there's a healthy development, we do get into that contralateral system and everything's working left and right and working together like that. And that's like the figure eight, seamlessly, infinitely just working well on both sides together and making that beautiful infinity kind of sign. But when we get hit with illness or disease or toxins or stress, trauma, we can actually revert, like what has been happening to me, to a homolateral way of moving, a homolateral way of navigating the world. And it's like when you're a child, you just fall because it's so difficult on the body to walk left and left arm and left leg, or it's harder, it's more work, it's more effort, but the body doesn't know how to fix that on its own when it's gotten too far with stress or disease or illness. And it's the same thing with like, there's a figure eight kind of thing, like going in energy, going to the floor, coming back out when you're walking forward or walking backwards. But when you go from contralateral back to homolateral and your body is not working correctly, then instead of this like smooth, oh yeah, I'm walking forward and now the energy is going to the floor and I'm taking my next step and I keep going forward, or if you're trying to go backwards. But when that doesn't work and you're going into homolateral, it even affects your forward or back movement. Your body ends up going backwards instead of forwards. Because if you think about it, if you're trying to go left and left or right and right, you're not going to get as far as if you're going left and right and really like propelling yourself forward. So when you're going left and left, you actually kind of like send energy in the wrong direction of what you want to go. But doing figure eights with your body reminds your body of how it's supposed to go, of how these two sides of our brain and bodies work together, how we can actually remind our bodies of our centeredness, of our wholeness, remind our bodies how to heal and how to use the leverage of the left and right sides and get them working together again. So yeah, I'm going to keep doing these figure eights. Feel free to, I encourage you to find places where you're already using figure eights. You might not even realize it. If you're a dancer or doing something very active with your body, you might be very well aware that you're doing figure eights, or very well aware of what movements are incorporating figure eights, and just do more of them, because it really helps our body to come together and stay together and work together in the most easy, strong, grounded way. And we get back to our infiniteness. Is that even a word? We are infinite beings. We are soul beings. We are meant to have that infinite power to just work together. Like from source, we are meant to be whole and not broken or not working or having something holding us back from integrating both sides and working together that way. So remind your body of that by doing figure eights. I'm excited to do more ochos, laterals, drawing of figure eights if I need to, and Suzy Q's. I miss Suzy Q's. Now I know why I need to do more of them. Thanks all for listening.